The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, a low hum of whispers and shifting feet echoing off the polished wood and marble. Every seat was filled, the air thick with tension and curiosity. At the center of it all stood Daniel Evans, a seasoned lawyer whose reputation for tenacity preceded him. Across the room, presiding over the proceedings, was Judge Marcus Thorne, a figure from Daniel's distant, troubled past. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange, years of unspoken history seemed to hang between them, heavy and unresolved.
Judge Thorne's usually impassive face faltered for a moment, betraying a flicker of recognition. He remembered Danny Evans, not as the accomplished attorney before him now, but as the troubled teenager he had once sentenced to juvenile detention nearly 20 years ago. The memory was sharp, a reminder of choices made and the weight of justice carried over decades.
Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. This trial was more than just another case. It was a confrontation with his own past, a chance to prove that people could change, that redemption was possible. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for his client Maria, but for himself. Every glance, every word exchanged in that courtroom was charged with meaning, as if the ghosts of their shared history watched from the shadows.
Is the defense ready to proceed? Judge Thorne's voice, steady but tinged with something softer, broke the silence. The question was routine, but the moment was anything but.
"We are, Your Honor," Daniel replied, his voice clear and unwavering, masking the storm of emotions beneath his calm exterior.
As Daniel leaned in to reassure Maria, his client, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was more than a legal battle. It was a fight for Maria's future, and in a way, for his own. The echoes of his youth, the mistakes and the lessons learned all converged in this moment. The courtroom became a stage where personal history and professional duty collided, each move scrutinized by those who remembered and those who judged.
The courtroom was silent, the air thick with unresolved history. Every eye was fixed on the two men at the heart of the drama, sensing that this was more than a trial. It was a reckoning, a test of whether the past could be overcome.
Daniel stood tall, determined to show that the justice system could offer more than punishment. It could offer hope, growth, and redemption. He was here not just to defend Maria, but to prove that the system, and the people within it, could change for the better. The courtroom, once a place of condemnation for him, was now a place where he could fight for second chances. The stage was set for a confrontation years in the making. As the gavel prepared to fall, everyone in the room sensed that the outcome would echo far beyond the verdict, shaping the lives of all involved, and perhaps finally, bringing closure to wounds long left open. Let us return to a moment that would forever alter the course of a young life. In a crowded courtroom, a young Danny Evans, barely a teenager, stands in handcuffs, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. The world around him blurs as he tries to make sense of the accusations swirling in the air, accusations of theft he did not commit. The weight of injustice presses down on his small shoulders, and the future he once dreamed of suddenly seems impossibly far away.
I remember looking at Danny and seeing not a frightened child, but a teenager burning with defiance. There was a spark in his eyes, a refusal to be broken, even as the world seemed determined to crush him. He stood tall, jaw set, facing the judge with a mixture of anger and disbelief. It was as if he was silently daring the world to underestimate him.
The judge's gavel came down with a thunderous finality, echoing through the silent courtroom. In that instant, Danny's world shattered. His family, seated in the gallery, dissolved into tears, hearts breaking as their son was led away. The sound of the gavel was more than a verdict. It was the sound of a dream being torn apart, a future rewritten in an instant.
Life in juvenile detention was nothing like I'd ever imagined. The walls were cold, the nights long, and the sense of isolation overwhelming. But I refused to let my wrongful conviction define me. Every day I learned to survive in a place designed to break spirits. I found strength in small victories, finishing a book, doing push-ups, refusing to let despair take root. I was determined to hold on to my sense of self, no matter how hard they tried to strip it away.
The hardest moments came during visitation. Danny's mother would arrive, her eyes red from crying, her hands trembling as she pressed them against the glass. Each visit was a painful reminder of the life and hope that had been stolen from them. Yet, in those moments, Danny found a new kind of strength, a resolve to fight not just for himself, but for his family, for the truth, and for the chance to reclaim what had been lost.
I made a promise to myself. I would fight back, but not with anger or violence. I would use my mind as my weapon. I started reading everything I could about the law, about justice, about the stories of others who had been wronged. I filled notebooks with ideas, questions, and dreams. Each page was a step toward freedom, a declaration that I would not be silenced.
The injustice that had threatened to bury Danny instead became the foundation upon which he would rebuild his life. It was not a tombstone marking the end of his dreams, but a cornerstone for a new beginning. He realized that his story was not over. In fact, it was just beginning.
I refused to be a victim. I would not let the system's failure define who I was or what I could become. Every day I reminded myself that I still had a choice, to give up or to fight for something better.
In the darkness of his cell, Danny's resolve was forged in the fires of injustice. Each setback, each moment of despair only made him stronger. The pain became fuel, the anger became focus, and the dream that had once seemed lost began to burn brighter than ever.
I knew I had to find a way to fight back, not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever been silenced or forgotten. I wanted to be a voice for those who had none, to stand up against the injustice that had nearly destroyed me.
The system had failed Danny in the worst possible way, branding him with a label he did not deserve, but he refused to let that label define his future. Instead, he chose to rewrite his story, one determined step at a time.
I decided I would become a lawyer. I would dedicate my life to fighting for justice, to being a voice for the voiceless, and to making sure that what happened to me would never happen to another innocent child.
The past left its mark, a scar that would never fully fade, but that scar was not just a reminder of pain, it was a testament to Danny's survival, to his resilience, and to the strength he found in the face of overwhelming odds. Alone in the shadows, Danny learned what it meant to endure. Each lonely night, each moment of doubt, became a lesson in perseverance. He discovered that hope could survive even in the darkest places. And so, with every step he took down those long, echoing corridors, Danny moved closer to a future he would shape with his own hands. His journey was just beginning, a journey from chains to freedom, from despair to hope, from a dream in tatters to a life rebuilt. The juvenile hall library became Danny's sanctuary, a quiet refuge from the chaos and noise of incarceration. In that small sunlit room surrounded by shelves of books, he found a rare sense of peace. The world outside those walls was harsh and unforgiving, but here, Danny could lose himself in pages that offered both escape and hope. The library was more than just a place to read, it was a place to dream of something better, to imagine a life beyond the bars.
I devoured legal books, studying my enemy from the inside. Every statute, every case, every story of injustice and redemption became fuel for my determination. I read late into the night, my fingers tracing the words that had the power to change lives or destroy them. The more I learned, the more I realized that knowledge was my only weapon. I was determined to understand the system that had failed me, to find its weaknesses, and to use its own rules to fight back.
A social worker, Mrs. Gable, saw potential in him. She noticed the spark in his eyes, the hunger for something more. While others dismissed him as just another lost cause, she offered encouragement and guidance. She brought him books, listened to his frustrations, and reminded him that his past did not have to define his future. Her support was a rare gift in a world that so often turned its back on people like Danny.
Her belief was a lifeline, pulling me from despair. When I doubted myself, she reminded me of my strength. When I felt invisible, she saw me. Mrs. Gable's faith in me was the first step toward believing in myself. She helped me see that my pain could be transformed into purpose, that my story wasn't over yet.
Upon release, the label of ex-convict shadowed him everywhere he went. The world outside was just as unforgiving as the one he'd left behind. Doors closed, opportunities vanished, and judgment followed him like a shadow. But Danny refused to let that label define him. He carried the weight of his past, but he also carried the lessons he'd learned and the dreams he'd nurtured in that library.
I worked manual jobs by day, studied law by night. My hands were calloused from labor, my eyes tired from reading, but I never stopped pushing forward. Every paycheck went toward tuition and books. Every night, I reminded myself why I was doing this. Not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been silenced or forgotten by the system.
Against all odds, he got into law school. The acceptance letter felt like a miracle, a second chance he'd fought for with every ounce of his being. Walking onto campus for the first time, Danny felt both excitement and fear. He knew he didn't fit in, but he also knew he belonged there. He was determined to prove that someone with his past could change the future.
I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to forge a weapon. Every class, every case study, every late night in the library was another step toward my goal. I wanted to understand the law not just to survive, but to fight back, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves.
He transformed pain into power, mastering the law with relentless determination. Each challenge became a lesson, each setback a reason to push harder. Danny's journey was not just about personal redemption, it was about changing the system from within, about making sure that no one else would have to suffer as he had. Danny was ready to wield his knowledge for justice. With every step he took toward the courthouse, he carried the hopes of those who had been overlooked and oppressed. He was no longer just a survivor, he was a warrior, armed with the law, ready to fight for what was right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maria Flores is innocent.
Daniel stood in Judge Thorne's courtroom defending Maria.
I didn't do it. I'm just trying to provide for my family.
The prosecution painted her as a thief, using circumstantial evidence.
I intend to show the evidence is not as solid as it appears.
Daniel's defense was meticulous, personal.
Consider how many others had access to the data.
He planted seeds of doubt, echoing his own past.
This is not just about Maria, it's about justice.
Daniel forced the judge to confront past misjudgments. The trial reached a critical moment with the prosecution's star witness.
Can you explain the company's security protocols?
Daniel's cross-examination was methodical, revealing the witness's gambling debts.
Objection! Relevance, Your Honor.
The defense may proceed, but tread carefully, Mr. Evans.
Daniel pressed on, showing the witness's financial motives.
Objection! The jury should know Mr. Evans has a criminal record.
The courtroom gasped, the secret out.
Yes, I was wrongly convicted. By you, Judge Thorne.
The judge was struck, his past laid bare. Judge Thorne called a recess, confronting his past mistakes.
I need to see that file, now.
The trial resumed, the atmosphere changed.
Look at Maria Flores. Assumptions are not facts.
Daniel's closing argument was personal and profound.
I defend everyone wrongfully accused.
The jury deliberated briefly, finding Maria not guilty.
Please let them see the truth.
Daniel had vindicated the boy he once was. He met Judge Thorne's gaze, finding respect and remorse. After the courtroom cleared, Daniel and Judge Thorne remained.
Yeah, I was wrong.
The admission was monumental, a release for Daniel.
I know.
The years of struggle were contained in those words.
You taught me a lesson about justice.
Daniel accepted the apology, feeling peace.
Justice is about seeing the person.
He reclaimed his story, freed from the past. Daniel walked into the light, a victor, a man redeemed.
What's something people don't know about stories? They never truly end. There's always a new adventure waiting for you. Just pick your next tale and I'll meet you there. Subscribe to the Story Circle and let me know which story I should tell next in the comments.